What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Too Pop to Handle. I'm your host, Andrew Nucatola, your pop culture best friend, and as always, I hope you guys are having a fabulous week. First things first, let me address the elephant in the room for any of my YouTube or video girlies. There is no video this week. I fully bought a new camera. I was ready to, step my game up. I was like so excited. Bought the camera, tried to record. I did a test yesterday, over the weekend, everything, did my thing, thought it would be fine. And I have been trying to start recording this episode now for an hour and a half and have just had tech problem after tech problem after tech problem. I don't know what Satan possessed demon is inside this camera, but it is just not cooperating with me. First it was the video, then it was the audio. It was just like a hot mess. And then I tried to set my phone up, which I usually record on, and for some reason my light will literally not turn on after it was on the entire time the camera was on. So that is really fantastic, really fabulous, really, really great. So that being said, I'm throwing in the towel and doing audio only this week. So I apologize to any of my visual listeners. You do what you got to do. We are kicking it old school, really OG podcast style with just an MP4 file and a dream. And that being said, let's get on with the show because I have been ready to chit chat with you guys for quite some time now, as you can tell. There is a lot to discuss this week, and though I have a plethora of pop culture moments to discuss with you guys, there are two things this week that I didn't really feel the need to put them in the show because there wasn't much more to elaborate on other than just these topics. But there's two things that I just wanted to cover with you guys to let you guys know yeah, I'm up on it, but I am not giving my space and or energy to these things because I cannot. First things first, Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, I thought your movie was called It Ends With Us. Apparently nothing's ending anytime soon. If you didn't see, their trial officially has a date, and it is not until next March 2026, which is just insane when you think about how long we have been hearing about this movie, hearing about this case, everything going on. Just today, we got new voice memos that Justin sent Blake at 2 a.m. I'm sure we're going to get more texts and more this and more that, and it is just it is a never-ending saga, and I am so tired of hearing about this goddamn case. But you know what? We will have another year of Justin Baldoni trying to defend himself. Blake, mind you, still has not made any comments. She hasn't come back with any evidence or anything yet. I think she's saving it all for the case. So we have a whole storm coming. I cannot believe we have to hear about this case for a whole nother year. That being said, something we don't have to wait a whole nother year on, but something that is very upsetting to hear. The house that Freaky Friday and Freakier Friday, the sequel that comes out in August, was filmed at, has burned down because of the LA fires, which obviously there's much bigger issues in the world than the Freaky Friday house burning down. But if you know me, you know I have been waiting for Freakier Friday for years. I have been campaigning for this. And the fact that now the house, they filmed in the house, they did a lot of things, and less than a year later from filming, the house had burned down. It's so heartbreaking. All of this month has just been non-fucking stop. I feel like this month has truly been eons long. I saw a tweet the other day and it was I'm so excited for January 72nd tomorrow. And that's exactly how this month feels. I feel like all of us are just shot. And you know what? It is what it is. We are just going to keep pushing on. It is the last week of the month, finally. So February is on the horizon. I have a vacation plan that I leave for next week, and I am so excited to just get away, unplug for a few days, and just relax. I need it, especially after this whole tech mishap that I had today. I am in need of a beach and a margarita more than I need air. That being said, let's get into the main points of this show because we have a lot to discuss this week, and we're going to kick things off with our Drew releases, our new music releases from last week, and our new music releases coming up this week. Full transparency, there is no new music on my radar this week. Nothing that comes to mind, nothing I could see. There's been this trend lately of these artists releasing, announcing their new songs coming out on Wednesdays for a Friday, and every time I record on Tuesday night, by Wednesday, on Tuesday, when I'm oh, there's no new music that I have on my radar coming out this week, by Wednesday, there's new music on my radar, which is what happened with our first song that we're going to talk about, Bruno Mars and Sexy Red, Fat, Juicy, and Wet. And now, hear me out. Like, how do I even talk about this song? I understand the lyrics are a little jarring. Trust me, I get it. There's a lot to digest there. But when you see a song with Sexy Red, you already kind of have a premeditated notion that, it's going to be a little saucy, a little raunchy, which I am all for. I am all for women sex empowerment. Talk your shit, do your thing. I could give two shits. But when Bruno Mars is on the coattails of releasing Die With a Smile featuring Lady Gaga and Pate Pate with Rosé, it is definitely a little jarring and quite the switch up, if I do say so myself. But you know what? Once you get past the lyrics, and like, again, I have no problem with the lyrics, talk about it. I could give two shits. Once you get past the lyrics and like the jarringness of that, it's a killer beat. And you know what? The music video is cute. He brought all the girls together. They had their fun. They did their thing. And for that, I think it's a bop. Like, I think it's cute. Is it like the most audience friendly song? No. But why did everybody have to be PG all the time? You know what I mean? It's kind of tying back to that overarching theme that I always say is like pop stars don't need to be raising your child or PG with whole, like the Sabrina Carpenter of it all when people were bitching and moaning, people being like white mothers in the Midwest, bitching and moaning about her not performing at an appropriate level for their kids. And I'm like, have you listened to the album? Have you heard anything on the album? Because in what world did you think a song called Bedcam was going to be performed not on a bed? Like have you ever tried this one? What do you think she was talking about? Fucking double dutch? Like, these people just, I don't know, it's crazy. But that being said, Bruno is clearly working hard to pay off these Vegas debts, which I just love that he's kind of like playing into it now. It's very funny. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. I don't know if I believe it. That being said, Bruno Mars is truly on one the last few months, and I think he is just going to do whatever the fuck he wants. And you know what? Good for you. Keep it up, Bruno. Moving on to our next song, the song that we actually talked about last week that I knew was coming out, Tate McRae's Sports Car. Now listen, is this song groundbreaking? No. But it's a bop, and there's a lot of chit chat online about people being like, I don't like it. She's trying to reheat Britney's nachos, which is like the funniest saying. I can't. But like, there's a lot of chit chat about whether or not Tate McRae is like, should have like a pop girl status or this or that. And like, if you're looking at the material, she's acing the course. She is truly giving us pop girl down, choreo, fun beats, killer looks. Did you see that look where she's on those like crazy tall high heels? Those heels are taller than her and she's at the top of them. Like the fur coats, like she is really giving us like pop fantasy down. And you know what? I'm tired of the Tate McRae slander and erasure from the world. I feel like people just like aren't taking her seriously, and I am all about this new track, this new album. I am so excited. So everybody else can just, go enjoy whatever else you want to enjoy. I'm going to be here enjoying Tate McRae, and that's that on that. Like I said, no new music on my radar this week that I can think of, but with my track record, I'm sure somebody's going to announce something major tomorrow, and this episode is going to sound like I'm fraudulent. But that being said, let's move into our moments from the week that were just too pop to handle, some pop culture rapid fire, because there was a lot to digest. Kicking it off with probably the most exciting story, to me at least, SZA is officially going to be featured as a guest at Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show next weekend, and I am so excited. I was already very excited for Kendrick's performance. He's a killer performer. He's just coming off like a crazy successful year, and I mean, Not Like Us, his album did so well. He's about to embark on a stadium tour with SZA this summer, and they had songs on his album, they had songs on her album. Like, it just makes sense that she was going to come out as a guest, but I didn't expect her to get announced like this. So I'm almost wondering what the capacity of the performance that she's going to give us is going to be. I don't think she'll perform any of her original music without Kendrick. Like, it's very much still Kendrick Lamar's show, and SZA is just a guest. But I'm very excited that she is like confirmed and is now being promoted with this. She's having already a killer year. We're only, 28 days, into the year, and like, she has the #1 movie, #1 album. She's about to go on a stadium tour. She is about to perform at the Super Bowl. Like, she is really taking 2025 by the reins. And you know what? In trying times like this, when people are really just pushing the limits of everything with politics, and it just, there's a lot going on. You all know I'm not here to be a political podcast. That'll never be my forte. But I think SZA is really showing us all how to take 2025 by the horns and ride the bull like it's your fucking job. And I am thrilled. I cannot wait to see her. speaking of the Super Bowl, obviously we found out who was going to be playing, Chiefs versus Eagles. And while of course this is very exciting for Eagles and Chiefs fans, I am finding myself torn because how do I pick between rooting for Taylor Swift's man's team and Quinta Brunson's favorite team and the Eagles? Like, how do I pick between the two of them? I am kind of leaning for the Eagles, only for the fact that, like, if the Eagles win, Quinta Brunson and the entire Abbott Elementary cast are going to just feed us with incredible content. And as much as I would love another Taylor and Travis kiss on the field, we got one last week, we got one last year. I think I need Quinta Brunson to, really have a win this year. So I fear I might be rooting for the Eagles, but you guys know me, I am no sporty spice. So I just hope everybody has fun. I am here for the snacks. I'm here for SZA. I'm here for Kendrick. So that being said, SZA will be at the Super Bowl. Very exciting. Moving on to to our next moment of the week that was just too pop to handle. This is a big one. We have the Oscar nominations. And now, if you listen to my Golden Globes recap, which if you didn't, what are you doing? Go listen. Well, finish this episode and then go listen to that. But I was saying on the Golden Globes recap how we're starting to see the fact that, like, this might not be a sweep of an award season when it comes to movies. We had such a diverse winning roster, I guess you could say, with the Golden Globes, and you never really know what's next with any of these award shows. And looking at these nominations, it really is anybody's game with who could win, because who knows where they're going to go. So I figured we're going to go through the main categories, so like Best Picture, Lead Actor, Lead Actress, Supporting, and then we will talk about my thoughts and kind of where I'm at with who I want to win. So kicking it off with the big one of the night is Best Picture. The nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. For Lead Actress, we have Cynthia Erivo, Wicked, Carla Sofia Garcon, Amelia Perez, Mikey Madison, Anora, Demi Moore, The Substance, and Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. For Supporting Actress, we have Monica Barbero, A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande, Wicked, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, Isabella, Rossellini, Conclave, and Zoe Saldana and Amelia Perez. For Lead Actor, we have Adrian Brody, The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but Ralph Fiennes, Conclave, Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. And then Supporting Actor, we have Yura Borisov for Anora, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. And then the final nomination that we're going to read is Music Original Score, which will make sense in a moment when I compile my thoughts. For Original Score, we have The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. So looking at the list, and obviously there's many more nominations that I didn't read. There's a whole plethora of them. So coming in at number one, leading the nominations, is Amelia Perez with 13 nominations. They're actually setting the record for the most nominations for a non-English language film, which very exciting. It is also with Carla Sofia Garcon getting nominated. She is the first openly transgender actor to be nominated for an Academy Award, which is obviously very exciting. However, I don't understand what the thing with this movie is. Now, I have not seen it, but what I have seen on TikTok and what I read online and like what's going on, I'm so confused because on one hand, we obviously have all of these the Academy and these people who are making the nominations voting for this movie and like putting it up for a nomination, whether it wins or doesn't. Like, it won at the Golden Globes a ton. It's nominated for the most at the Oscars. I'm gonna have to watch it and just like see what's going on. But then there was the whole thing with Selena Gomez and them complaining that, her Spanish wasn't great and people were offended by the storyline. And people were saying like, this is essentially like, what if they made a movie about 9/11 and made it like a musical and glamorized it? Which, as somebody who lives in the United States, specifically New York, like if somebody made a musical about 9/11, I'd be like, what is going on? So on one hand, I'm confused because it's getting all these nominations and Zoe Saldana won. Like, there's all of this praise for it. And then on the other hand, online, people have all these mixed reviews and these mixed feelings, and Selena's under fire. Like, I'm just very confused at what is going on with this movie. That being said, very exciting to see that they are, leading the nominations and setting a record for a non-English language film. We love that. Of course, I will always represent and support any accomplishment for the transgender community. So congratulations to Carla Sofia for that. She has such a fun name, Carla Sofia Gascon. Like, I love that. It's such a fun name. And then coming in with the second amount of nominations is The Brutalist and Wicked, followed by The Complete Unknown and Conclave with 8 mentions each. Notable little moments, obviously Demi Moore, her first Oscar nomination. We're really seeing this like Demi Moore renaissance, and I feel like she's about to get cast in a whole lot of major motion pictures in the next year or so. Obviously her Golden Globe speech was such a moment that night. I think she really stole the show, and this getting this nomination, it would be major if she wins, and I would be thrilled to see if she wins. But of course, you guys know I'm rooting for Wicked. I'm a gay theater kid, which are pretty much synonyms. Like, I am obviously rooting for Wicked through and through. However, when you look at the list, and again, like I said, like there's really no clear sweep after the Golden Globe, so we don't really know how the Oscars are going to teeter. It really could be anybody's game. I think a lot of people were really surprised when they saw the Golden Globe nominations and everything. So, I mean, Golden Globe winners, excuse me. So it really is like up in the air in that sense. But like on the coattails of Wicked, Ariana Grande is officially an Oscar-nominated actress, which is so exciting, and it really does kind of like open that door for her to be like, oh, you are good at this, like she was a pop star for years, and she still is, of course, but like going into this major role, it really was a jump for her, though she was still singing in it. It was such a big feat for her, like she really had to train herself, and she has acting backgrounds, whatever, but like this was such a different environment for her to be in. So for her to get this nomination, it is so exciting. Obviously, I'm a huge Ariana Grande fan, like that's no denying, but as just like a Wicked fan in general, I'm obviously rooting for them through and through. But like I said, this is such a diverse amount of nominations that it really could be anybody's game. I mean, even like A Complete Unknown and Conclave getting 8 nominations, like clearly there's something to write home about there. The Brutalist getting 10, tied with Wicked, like it's a tough competition, and I feel like we're gonna see with the Grammys this coming weekend, which I'm so excited for. There's just so much content that was put out, and I talked about this on the Golden Globes episode, but there's been so much content being fed to us, and the fact that like every award show is kind of a bloodbath, and like, are we going to see a sweep? Are we not? Like, it's hard to tell. That being said, something that's not hard to tell is the fact that the Challengers was completely snubbed. They didn't get a single nomination, and I at least expected them to get Best Original Score, which is why I brought that nomination and those nominees into the episode. I listen to that score very regularly. I'm somebody who really likes an album soundtrack and a score when I'm working, whether it's like editing something or if I'm like at my 9 to 5, my regular job working. So when I saw Challengers not even getting a Best Score nomination, I was genuinely shocked. And I really do feel like I said, with so much content that got pushed out last year, it really is coming down to the wire of like who was the standout movies, and the way that Challengers was such a moment online, and it just didn't translate through to the rest of these award shows or whatever. If anybody listens to Giggly Squad, I feel like Hannah Burner, she's been like hating on the Challengers since she watched it for the first time. I loved the movie, but apparently nobody else liked it because it got no Oscar nominations. I'm genuinely shocked. I'm like, I really thought they were going to get at least original score, something for Zendaya. Like, I don't know. I was just very surprised to see this. But I guess there can only be so many nominees, and they can't give it to everybody, because then what's the point of getting nominated? So definitely shocked about that. Something else I'm also shocked about is the fact that John M. Chu was not nominated for Best Director, which in my opinion, I thought Wicked was fantastic. Like, I thought he did a fantastic job at bringing the stage musical to the screen, and like really adapted it perfectly. I thought it was so well done. I mean, film Twitter and everybody online took credit. They're like, his lighting was this, his lighting was that, blah, 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 blah. Sure, say what you want about the lighting, say what you want, but he's a director. Like, his job is to make these artistic choices that is supposed to emulate the emotion that he wants you to feel while you're watching this film. If John M. Chu wanted a darker setting for a certain scene in Wicked, it was intentional. It's not that he doesn't know how to use lighting. It's not that he doesn't know how to properly emote things. He's a huge director. Like, it's not like it's his first rodeo. So I think like I don't know. It's interesting to see, what gets these nominations, what doesn't. And John didn't get a Golden Globe nomination either, so it's definitely surprising. And now, of course, he does have that second chance next year with Wicked for Good, the part 2. So maybe they wanted to just kind of like let these other directors shine, and then he'll get his flowers for part 2. But it's interesting to see him not getting it this first round when everybody else, Cynthia got nominated, Ariana got nominated, they were Best Score, they got nominated for Best Soundtrack, I'm pretty sure. Like, there's definitely been a lot of love for Wicked. Clearly, it was one of the second most nominated films, but to leave out John, it just feels so wrong. But that being said, the Oscars will take place in just about a month. They're going to be on Sunday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. Very excited for that. I will obviously do a full recap on the podcast. And also, if anybody didn't know, I have a Substack, and on Substack, they have this feature where you can do a subscriber chat, and you can essentially like live update with everybody while these things are going on. And I see a lot of other pop culture like Substack or writers and whatever do this during award shows. If anybody would be interested in any like live chat during the show so we could like live update each other on what we're thinking, if we're excited, if we're not, like how we're going, let me know if that would be something anybody would be interested in, because I think that's something that's very doable. I mean, I'm usually on my computer while these award shows are on anyway, taking notes and tweeting and doing whatever. Like I'm already on the computer, so I think it could be a fun way to kind of, get the community chatting and kind of, get a pulse on what everybody's thinking before I record. So if anybody is a subscriber and would like that, let me know. If anybody is not a subscriber and would like to, this is a perfect time to plug that I have a Substack. It's just twopoptohandle.substack.com, and I do my podcast notes there. So there's always a recap of the episode, just kind of give you guys what I chatted about. And then I add in extra like newsletter during the weekend. Usually I will say I have been off on that lately. I've just had a lot going on. That being said, ideally, in a perfect world, you also get a pop culture newsletter over the weekend with some extra things between episodes. And I like to throw in a few little extra things. I just did a whole write-up about like 7 artists to add to your playlist in 2025, which I thought was really good. And I'll do like ranking. I did like ranking Ariana Grande skits, things like that. I do like fun little pop culture write-ups. So if anybody is, wants some readings, or anybody is interested in diving into some more moments from the week that were just too pop to handle, I'll have my Substack link down below. But again, let me know about that chat thing, because I think it could be, a really cool way to just like connect with everybody and chat in real time instead of like me talking into the microphone every week, and hoping you guys are listening and responding back. The next moment of the week that was just too pop to handle, Katy Perry has announced the Lifetimes Tour, which is her first tour she is going on in 7 years. Obviously, she had her play residency in Vegas that went on for a while, but this is the first time she's embarking on a full tour, which is very exciting. And now, before I even go into more about this tour and chit-chatting about like what's in store and the tour route, obviously, there's been a lot of chit-chat about Katy Perry over the last few months, year, give or take, with obviously 143 coming out and people not liking the music and thinking she's a flop, this or that. You can think what you want. I gave my thoughts on the album. I don't think it's a bad album. I don't think it's the best album I've ever heard, but like I do think the hate is a little forced and a little try hard. But what I'm going to say is, you can say whatever you want about Katy Perry. She is a performer. I have seen her on every tour she has ever done. We all saw her Vanguard Award at the VMAs last year. Like, she always brings it to the stage. So say what you want about the new album, say what you want about the music. When you look at Katy Perry, she is a performer and she puts on an insane show. So regardless of how I liked the album, whatever, I was already buying a ticket to this tour. I literally will always go see Katy Perry because she truly puts on such a fantastic show. The California Dreams tour that was in 2009, it's truly like, to this day, probably top 5 shows I've ever been to in my life. It genuinely was like a shift in my brain to be like, oh, this is what I want to see. Like, this is how I want to spend my money to go to concerts and watch a theatric show like this. And that is what Katy brings every single time she goes on tour. So I personally am thrilled about this news. And then just, bring up to speed how she's feeling with the tour. She did an interview with Rolling Stone and she chatted with the Vanity Fair, and she didn't tour her last album, Smile. And there were 2 reasons. Obviously, number one, the biggest one, or actually the biggest one to us, but not to her, being COVID. We were in the middle of the pandemic. There really wasn't any concerts going on. And she also gave birth to her daughter 2 days after the album came out, or 2 days before the album came out, excuse me. So she was clearly in no state to be touring this album. She was asked about it, she said, no, because my C-section was healing and I was unable to go down the stairs. I was raising a whole human. And of course, Smile came out 2 days after I had the baby. I was still recovering from having Daisy. And I remember I was in the hospital bed and I was like, yay, my album's out, but the nurse has to come and wipe my butt now. This is a whole different time in my life. Everything's different and I love it. She went on to say that when I made this record, speaking about 143, it was a celebration of becoming a mother and all of the love and the cliches that are true with it, all the unconditional love that I never felt. It is a freeing, dance-heavy celebratory record, and that is exactly what this tour is going to be. And when you look back at Smile and Witness before that, and where Katy is now, between Witness and Smile, like, she went through it. There was a lot of like public scrutiny. I know her and Orlando had gone on a break in between those albums for like a hot second. Obviously, they're together now, married, doing their thing, whatever. But it was a tough time for her between those two albums. And for her to experience like that depression, we all remember like when she shaved her head and swish swish and people were dragging, oh my God, remember the SNL performance and people were like going nuts because the Backpack Kid, and it was just like, there was always something. I feel like people really were ragging on Katy Perry during that era, and to me, I'm like, I don't think it was warranted. And then when Smile came out, we were in the middle of the pandemic, and it kind of just like didn't help anybody's situation in 2020 when you release an album, because you literally could barely promote it, which will kind of tie into our main topics of the show later on. So this is the first time she's really in a different headspace, where not only is she legally allowed to tour this album because the country is reopened, but she's mentally prepared for it. And I think that is the most important thing. I think it's really exciting to see that she has like taken herself out of it. Obviously, being a mother has been, for anybody, is such like a huge change in your life. Obviously, you're literally raising a human being. So for her to like have Daisy and now be raising her, she's got to be 25 now. She'll be 5 this year, which is insane. So yeah, it's like, it's time. I'm ready for her to go on tour. I am so excited. It's going to be so much fun. Like she said, it's going to be a dance heavy celebratory album, and I cannot wait. That being said, I did think the tour route was very interesting, and now she's been announcing this tour for a while. She announced like the Mexico leg, she announced a few Europe dates, and like she's kind of been like announcing things very sporadically, and it appears that the US and Canada, North America, for lack of a better word, was the last leg to be announced. And when she, when they asked about how she planned this whole tour and how it's going, she said that everything I'm doing has been specific because I want the fans to feel special. When your favorite singer comes to your town, it's special that they've chosen this town to come to. I'm utilizing all of the things that I've learned along the way to give people a place to connect and find community. So the tour kicks off in Mexico in April, and then it comes to the US in May, goes to Australia in June, comes back to North America for the US and Canada for July through August, and then September through October, she's going to South America and Europe. So it's very interesting. Typically on a tour route, you do like one continent at a time. You do your North America, then you go South America, then you go Europe, then you go Asia, then you do your thing. She really is bouncing around like a little jumping bean. Like I said, this Mexico, United States, Australia, US and Canada, and then South America and Europe. So she really is she's going worldwide with this, but it's definitely an interesting choice the way that she's doing it. But nonetheless, I am very excited. Tickets went on sale today, on Tuesday, when I'm recording it, for like pre-sale. There's another pre-sale later this week. I'm pretty sure they go on sale Friday for like the gen public. So very exciting. I, for one, will be in attendance. Like I said, I've never missed a Katy tour, and I'm not going to start now because she just always puts on a killer show. And all of that aside, she has not toured while Never Really Over has been out. And Never Really Over is one of my favorite songs, probably of all time. It's like one of the best pop songs I've ever heard in my life. And I think the entire world really slept on it and did not give it the appreciation that it deserved. So the fact that like she will, I hope, oh my God, if she doesn't perform Never Really Over on this tour, I will have to be speaking to her team and her management, because that will hurt. But nonetheless, I will be there. I'm very excited, and I think everybody else should go, because Katy Perry really does put on a killer show. Moving on to our final pop culture moment from the week that was just too pop to handle. Selena Gomez is at it again with social media. And I have some mixed feelings about it, but let's get into it and then we'll talk about my thoughts. She posted on her story yesterday, Monday morning, crying. And she said, I just want to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children, I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything. I promise. And she was like inconsolable, hysterically crying, obviously mentioning the fact that all of these deportations are going on, which is just so dystopian to be watching and heartbreaking. And like she said, like, I don't know what I can do. Like, and speaking for myself, like, I feel the same way. I'm like, in this current state of the world, like, it almost feels helpless for these people. And it it's truly devastating. She then went on to delete the story like a few minutes later and posted a black screen saying apparently it's not okay to show empathy for people. And like I said, I'm not that I'm torn on her stance. Obviously, I'm 100% on her side, and I feel the exact same way. I'm like, I feel so helpless in this situation where I don't know what I can do to help these people that are getting mass deported out of the place that they've called home for years. It is fucking disgusting. It is vile, and I can't. Like, I can't think about it too much, which is such a privileged mindset to have, and I understand that. But if I think about it for too long, I truly am, I spiral, and I'm like, I don't know. But what I'm going to say is, now this is not the first time Selena has spoken out about people getting deported and, speaking of her undocumented immigrants. If we all remember, in 2019, she produced that documentary Living Undocumented, and she wrote that essay for Time all about the immigration crisis. So, like, this is something that is very near and dear to her heart. I mean, she herself is Mexican, so though she's born in America, that's her heritage. So this is something very near and dear to her heart, and I think anybody with a soul and a heart, this is also very near and dear to their heart. It's just not an easy thing to digest and discuss or talk about. It's actually so dystopian. That's the only way I've been able to describe anything happening re the Trump presidency so far. It just feels dystopian. That being said, I just hope this is a wake-up call for celebrities and people with platforms specifically to speak up and use their voices going forward before elections. Now, Selena did post about voting, and she'd encourage people to go mail in their ballots and vote and whatever, and like, that is great. Obviously, good. Thank you, Selena. Like, appreciate that. But there's definitely more that you can do leading up to an election. And I'm not blaming Selena Gomez for Trump winning the election. That's not what I'm doing. But I hope that this is a wake up call to a lot of the people with bigger platforms. And in 4 years, when there is a new election and this is me manifesting, I'll have a much bigger platform then. I cannot wait to just use my platform again to promote the fact that, like, we need to vote blue and, like, get the fucking word out and, like, whatever it may be. But these people who have these platforms, like, there is such a lack of, especially this election. I feel like there was a lot of people who were, like, missing from the conversation, and I hope that, like, seeing all of these actions happening now, and I will say kudos to Selena. She's like one of the first celebrities who I feel like has really spoken up about these issues and these situations. So for that, I do give her props there. And again, I'm not knocking her for this or whatever. Like, it is a hard situation to be in, talking about politics and elections, especially as a celebrity and a public figure. But I just hope, like, if anything, everybody learns. I wish everybody learned in 2016, but I hope everybody learned this time around that, like, hey, the things that they're saying they're going to do, they are ready to do it and are going to do it as lickety split fast as they can. Which, again, dystopian, the only word I have. But yeah, I thought it was the thing with Selena is she gets a lot of shit on social media, and though I did think it was a little bizarre that she deleted the post so fast. Obviously the internet lasts forever, so, like, people screen recorded, it was all over the internet. Like, it's never going to fully go away, especially Selena Gomez. I believe she's still the most followed person on Instagram, or she was for a while. Like, she has a crazy following, so the second she posts anything, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are going to see it. And for her to post it and then delete it, and, like, now going backpedaling, and she had one of the Senate candidates speak up and say to deport her, which it's just so, like, it's all just dystopian, and I can't. But I just hope Selena starts to realize, like, hey, think before you post, but keep posting. Like, don't not be vocal about this. And, everybody else, be vocal as well. Speak up about it. Use your platforms, but let's do the conversations before the election and, share resources and share links and post a reel and go to these campaigns and do your thing. And, it's obviously it's nobody's fault that specifically you can't pinpoint this on one person as to why the election went the way that it did, but there is something to be said about a lack of conversation around it and, like, a fear of speaking up, which I understand to a point. But now there was 1,000 ICE arrests today before 11 a.m. So, like, sit with that. Like, if would it really have killed these people to speak up during the election and post to their followers? I don't know. Moving on, though, I like I said, I'm not a podcast. I'm not trying to be that, but it is pop culture, and it is what is going on in the world right now, and it's very fucking crazy. Moving into our main points of the show, our woman of the hour, Lady Gaga, Stephanie Germanotta, is back. She has announced that LG7 is coming out March 7th. It is called Mayhem, and I am so excited. I have been talking about this album for so long, and we're going to talk about the rollout in just a second. But before we talk about the rollout, and the whole theme of this episode is going to be album rollouts, and specifically Lady Gaga's, and like the way she's kind of had, why this album rollout is so major for her because of her track record, the last two, or however when you count it. We'll get into that in a second. But Mayhem is coming out March 7th. She posted a teaser on Monday morning, and we kind of knew it was coming. I talked about this last week on the show, but her website was counting down to the 27th, so we knew something was coming. And, you know, with all the talk about it, she confirmed the album would be coming out this year, so we knew it was coming. It just made sense, and we kind of knew that it was going to be the album. And then Monday morning, I don't know who rolled it early, but somebody rolled out billboards in Times Square of the album art with the date, so it kind of got spoiled, but it is what it is. We knew it was coming anyway, but Mayhem is here. The teaser it just looks so cool. It's giving very much like Born This Way and Chromatica Had a Baby. Like it has that like dark, edgy kind of vibe of the like the alt sides of like Chromatica and Born This Way. You know, Born This Way, she's like the motorcycle on the cover. She's wearing the leather jackets. It was still pop music, but it was very much that like kind of rocky, grungy look. And then Chromatica it had that poppy sound and vibe to it, but there was still the kind of grit to it, you know? There was that little like it wasn't a full pop album. It wasn't the Fame or the Fame Monster where it was like traditional pop music. It really was a new sound that Gaga was really diving into and playing with. And I'm kind of getting a mix of the two of those albums with this teaser. And just from like what she's saying, I'm so excited. So let's get into what we know. She's doing a lot of press for it, obviously, as one does. And she said that the project will feature 14 tracks with a new single and a music video arriving this Sunday, February 2nd, during a commercial break midway through the 2025 Grammys. So we're getting a new Gaga song sometime next week. It'll be premiered during the Grammys. I don't know if it's going to get released right away after. We will see. But that being said, we will have something new from Gaga to talk about next week. Okay, so there is my music, actually, that we're going to talk about next week. Duh. But we are getting new music this week, which I cannot wait. The album will also feature Die With A Smile, which I feel very split on. When the song came out, if anybody remembers, I was saying how this doesn't really fit the landscape of LG7 and what I wanted, but it was fine for like a one-off single. However, the song is doing so incredibly well and breaking so many records that it would be kind of dumb for her to not include this song on the album, even if it doesn't fit the vibe of the album. So I'm thinking it's going to sit at track 14. It's going to be like the last song on the album. Just kind of, it's almost like that last song on the album that like, yeah, it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the album, but it's just there to like show off their artistic abilities and whatever. And again, with the popularity of that song, it would be stupid for her and for Bruno to not include this song on any album going forward, just because of the almost like automatic success of it with that being on it. So definitely a little not what I expected for Die With A Smile, but I understand why it's going to be on the album. She said that the album started as me facing my fear of returning to the pop music that my earliest fans loved, resembling a shattered mirror. Even if you can't put the pieces back together perfectly, you can still create something beautiful and whole in its own new way. She described one of the tracks as happy and apocalyptic. She said that there's many influences from the 90s and alternative electro grunge vibe. She pulled inspiration from Prince and Bowie. There's melodies, guitar, there's attitude, funky bass lines, and French electronic dance with analog synths. And I'll be completely honest, I have no idea what any of that means, but I am buying all of it. I trust Gaga. She's really, you know, we never know what to expect with her. You know, she kind of likes to keep us on our toes, on our paws, if you will. And I think that she knows what we want, and she knows that like it is time to give us that full pop vibe. She obviously gave it to us with Chromatica, but she couldn't fully roll that out because of the pandemic and leaks and whatever, which we'll get into in just a moment. But I think this is really like her big comeback to pop music, and she's really ready to just like go full send on this album. She went on to say that Mayhem is utter chaos. It just feels good to me. It sounds good. It breaks a lot of rules and has a lot of fun, which is exactly what Gaga has always been. She's always broken the rules. She's always just like had fun, caused chaos, and like that's what she does best. So I think that she's back in this mindset. You know, we kind of let her go on her own little path for a bit. She had Cheek to Cheek, Joanne. She did a little bit of, you know, her piano shows in Vegas. Like, you know, she's definitely had an interesting few years. You know, it is whatever you want to call it. But I think she knows, she's like, all right, let's go back to my roots. And she also was actually talking about like her synesthesia, which is like when you can hear colors, and how what this album looks like to her. She said that as I'm writing, it assembles in my brain, and then through recording, it becomes a full piece of color. Every song has a different shade. A lot of the songs on this album have a maroon brown color to them. Bad Romance was like that. It was reddish. And I mean, if it's gonna sound like Bad Romance, I'm already sold. I just said Fame Monster is my favorite Gaga project ever. And I mean, Bad Romance is really like the Gaga song that people think of. I feel like it was like the big moment for her, amongst others, of course. But Bad Romance is clearly like it's a pillar in her career. So the fact that we're getting something similar to the sound of Bad Romance has me so excited. I loved Disease, so I'm not doubting I'm gonna love this album. And there's really no Gaga projects I dislike. I've really been on board with all of them when they've been like the solo Gaga projects, which again, I keep saying we'll get into it, but we're going to do a whole run through of Gaga's discography in just a moment, kind of deep dive into the rollouts and like things like that, just to kind of take a trip down memory lane. But when I was looking, when this album finally came out, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that I have literally been talking about this album for almost a year. I actually went back to look at when I first started talking about Gaga's return to music, because when she put out the Chromatica Ball on HBO, if you guys remember last May, yes, May 2024, we have been waiting for this album. At the end of it, it flashed, what was it? It said LG7 Gaga Returns. So that was May 2024. And that was my episode titled Welcoming Gaga and Katy Perry with Open Arms, or whatever it was. And funny, I'm talking about Gaga's album and Katy's tour. They're really good about announcing things at the same time. It's kind of been like an ongoing thing in their careers forever. But like I said, it's been since May 2024 that we've been anticipating this album, and it is finally here. And it's been like it's been a road. We had September, obviously she was at the Vienna Film Festival, and she posted that little itinerary when she was at Hotel Cipriani, and it said like XX October, LG7 first single. She obviously released Harley Quinn, and that, was her whole thing there. She did the October cover of Vogue, and she was saying how the album was going to come out in February, and how Michael, her fiance, is the person who told her to make a new pop record. And back when she was doing that press, she said, I felt very free making LG7 and all the music that I've been working on. It's kind of like realizing you can take even more risks than the ones you've already taken. I love celebrating things and myself as a character in Lee, which referring to Harley Quinn, and that I actually was really feeling privately ashamed of. I think I broke into that in my studio album as well, to create something unapologetic. Then come later October, we had Disease finally come out. November, she did the Coachella announcement. And then, like I said, last week, we got the album countdown on her website, and the billboards went up on Monday. So it's been a long road for this rollout, and it's definitely been something that she's been teasing for a while. And whether it was, pushback due to, I don't know, production concerns or whatever, who knows, but it is finally coming. We are finally getting it. And honestly, I have no doubts that it's going to be worth the wait, because when does Gaga ever disappoint, really? Like when it's an actual Gaga album and not and this is no shade, but a Tony Bennett album, or a Harley Quinn, which I did like Harley Quinn, and I liked, The Star is Born, but it's not a Gaga album, it's Lady Gaga singing on it, but it's not a full Gaga album. So it's exciting to finally get like that again. You guys know what I mean. And like I said, we're gonna go through all of Gaga's history of album rollouts, and kind of like where they stood in the time of pop music, and where she was at like with her billboards and breaking records, because she really has such a insane repertoire, if you want to say. I mean, it all starts with the fame. She got dropped from her record label the year before, in 2006, and then she met Red One in 2007, and I mean, the rest is history. If you put on Just Dance, the first thing you hear is Red One. Like, she had that tag on everything, and that really was like where this big boom of pop music from her started. The first two singles went number one. It was Just Dance and Poker Face, and like I said, it really was this big boom of pop music then. We had Katy coming into the scene. Taylor was kind of like diving into her thing. Beyonce was doing her whole like I Am Sasha Fierce moment, and we had Single Ladies was about to come out, and a few years later, like it was just like a really exciting time for pop music. And I think all of these ladies just like testing the limits, and like Gaga said, it was like a broken mirror, and then you put it back together, and it's not perfect, and it kind of went against the grain, but we had this big moment in pop music when all of this was happening, and Gaga really was like at the forefront of all of it. She was everywhere doing everything, and it was such a huge moment in pop culture. And that's why I think like Gaga will never not have a special place in a lot of, I mean, of course, gay men, but like just a lot of like pop fans' hearts because she really came onto the scene and was like, I am Gaga, hear me roar. This is what I'm going to do, and you guys are gonna like it or you're not. She was just very like unapologetic herself, which is exactly why everybody like either clung to her or didn't like her. And then we had My Beloved, the Fame Monster that got reissued in 2009 with the 8 songs on the EP. Obviously, most notable being Bad Romance, which became the most watched video on YouTube in April 2010. And then that October, Gaga became the first person with more than 1 billion combined views, which is insane. Like for the internet to really be picking up and taking off in YouTube and music videos and this like accessibility at our hands where music videos used to be you would watch it on MTV, you would catch it when they would replay it, and that was kind of it. So to be coming onto the scene with only your first album and an EP and being the first person to ever hit 1 billion combined views, like that is a huge deal. And like I said, it is that big boom of pop music that we had that really just like set the bar so high and like left an imprint almost on so many of us. I mean, me included. Like I said about seeing Katy in 2009 at the California, or it had to be 2010, excuse me. Seeing Katy 2010, I saw Gaga 2 months before that at the Fame Monster Ball. And like those two shows, seeing them back to back, truly were such pivotal moments in my life because I was like, this is the music that I want to be consuming. This is the type of artist that I want to be supporting because they are giving it all to us. You know, it was really a moment for me and so many people my age and just so many people who were pop music fans at the time. She became the most downloaded female act that year with 11.1 million downloads, and she earned an entry in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most digital downloads of the year. So really just like taking the digital age by storm and running with it. And then we have Born This Way, of course, as her next album in 2011. The lead single, as the title track, Born This Way, it sold more than 1 million copies within 5 days, which earned her another Guinness World Record for the fastest selling single on iTunes. And I feel like back in the day, getting a Guinness Book of World Record was like the thing. Everybody was doing these outlandish things to, you know, get these records and get printed in the book. And for Gaga to have 2 under her wing in 2 years, it's a big deal, especially, like I said, with this new age of or not even streaming. It was literally buying and downloading on iTunes, and like people were buying music videos, we were buying songs. It was like, it really was like this whole new era we were all experiencing together. And she really I hate to say capitalized on it because there's like a negative connotation with that, but she really just like hit the ground running and went with it. The album went on to sell 8 million copies worldwide, received 3 Grammy nominations, including Gaga's 3rd consecutive nomination for Album of the Year, and then she went on to the Born This Way ball. And when I was saying earlier how she's kind of had an iffy hand of cards with album rollouts, this is kind of where it starts. Obviously, she had all the success. She was on top of the world. And then the Born This Way ball starts. And it started in 2012, hitting Asia, Europe, Latin America, Africa, and then coming to North America. And it was quickly canceled because she had a hip injury, which ended up kind of affecting a few moments in her career in the next few years. And this was really like the first time where it was like, oh shit, like she's not a superhuman. She's a human being and can't just keep going the way she has been. And of course, then the push of this tour kind of pushed back art pop. She was writing art pop while she was on tour. And then it was kind of, it's like a domino effect. You get hurt, your tour stops, you don't know what's next, your album gets pushed back. So like I said, she was writing it while she was on tour, and it was kind of teased and rumored for an early 2013 release, but it kept getting pushed back. There was no official announcement, but it did kind of get that shift after a while because there was no telling of when she was going to release music again. She posted it, I believe it was New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, about the album, and that's how we knew it was coming. But when you post it on New Year's Day, you assume it was going to be an early year album, and we didn't get it. I want to say it was August or September that Art Pop got released, so it was quite the lead up, which we're kind of seeing with Mayhem now. She likes to drop these clues and then kind of like Easter egg us and breadcrumb us along through these rollouts, which maybe is intentional, maybe it's not, but it's kind of her thing now. And with Art Pop, it was interesting because it was the first project of Gaga's that wasn't widely received. It sold well, it did well as far as like numbers and stuff, but as far as reviews and critics, like it really did kind of shake the table a bit because it wasn't her traditional sound. It was still pop music, it was still had that dancey vibe to it, but it had a little bit more of that like hyper pop, electronic, different sound to it that people weren't ready for, and it really was ahead of its time. When you think of albums now like Brat, when you think of Sophie's album, like there's so many songs, excuse me, that sound like art pop. And art pop was 10, 11 years ahead of that trend, you know? So looking at it now, the album is definitely much more appreciated. And I'm even one to admit, like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love art pop when it first came out. And it did take me a little while to digest it and like really start to understand it. It was a few years until I was like, oh fuck, this album is unbelievable. So I was right there with them, and I was a huge Gaga stan at this point. But it was something different, and it gave us this new level of Gaga. And then while we're all digesting this new level of Gaga, she takes a complete left turn and releases Cheek to Cheek, which is her collab album with Tony Bennett. It ends up going #1, and it was received so well. People loved it, and it kind of set her aside as like a vocalist. We all knew she could sing, but we were getting these like pop songs. We get a ballad on the album and whatever, but we weren't getting like a full body of work showing her like jazzy, kind of slowed down, laid back vibe. So when Cheek to Cheek came out, on the tails of art pop, it was like, wait, what? Like, it was such a truly like a double take, like whiplash with that album, those two albums. And it really, like I said, they were a year apart. So it really was like a jarring experience going back to back. And then we fast forward a little bit to 2016, and we get this still kind of like double take kind of an album with Joanne, which is famously her like country-esque album. She still gave us some upbeat songs on it, obviously. AO, Dancing in Circles, Perfect Illusion. Like, she definitely had those like fun, upbeat tracks. But we were definitely getting a little more stripped back and like slowed down Gaga. I mean, if you think of tracks like Million Reasons, Angel Down, Grigio Girls, like these slower, not as like pushing the limit pop songs that we were used to from Gaga. They're still great. I love Joanne. I went to the Joanne tour twice. I had a blast in a glass. And when you think about now, like, look, I didn't even realize this until this, like, just now in this moment, but like, Gaga released a country album in 2016, and now there's such an uproar in country music. Like, she is kind of always a little bit ahead of the curve when you think about it, which just kind of goes to show for her character and her artistic ability. Not to say that she's inspiring, you know, all of these influxes of types of music, but it is cool to see the fact that like she really did experiment with all of these genres in a time where a lot of people weren't changing things up so much, and now there is such more of an acceptance with that, which is it's cool to, you know, to see. It was her fourth #1 album on the Billboard 200, making her the first woman to reach the U.S. chart summit 4 times in the 2010s. She did the Super Bowl in 2017. She stepped in for Beyonce at Coachella because she was pregnant. Of course, we got The Cure at Coachella, which was like, okay, wait, this is kind of like a more of like a country, a poppy vibe. You know, it was a little more upbeat. It was like, okay, what are we getting here? And then we go on to 2018, which she was filming A Star Is Born at Coachella, and then it came out in 2018. That soundtrack was so widely received. I mean, people were eating that soundtrack up. People could not get enough of the Star Is Born soundtrack. I mean, rightfully so. It's fantastic, but like it was everywhere. And then in 2018, she kicked off the Enigma and Jazz Piano Vegas residency. So we were starting to get that like poppy Gaga back with Enigma, but she was still kind of dialing back with that jazz and piano sound. And she really wanted to, I think, show us that she could do both. Like, get you a girl that can do both and really experiment with these sounds and, you know, give you like a dual moment in that sense. And it was cool. She was doing, you know, the upbeat Enigma pop shows one night, and then it would be piano and jazz the next, or, you know, however the schedule would work. So she was really trying to like double down on the fact that like she's not a one-trick pony. And, you know, as that goes on, we start to ask like, okay, you did The Star Is Born, you did all this movie stuff, like you did the stripped back. When are we getting this pop album? And 2020 comes along, and we are all ready with open hands, open paws, if you will, for this pop album. She's teasing it. There's rumors. People know it's coming. It's supposed to be this big pop comeback with all these different universes and this crazy, like, Gaga is back. And she dropped Stupid Love in February 2020, which leaked a month earlier, which was so upsetting. And that's kind of how we knew what the sound was going to be. So Stupid Love comes out in February 2020. I loved it. It was that traditional poppy Gaga that like was pushing the limit, really giving us a different vibe from her, and just like showing us that like I can still do this fun, upbeat pop music if you guys need me to. And then the pandemic hits, and I every single day am like, what would the Chromatica era would have been without COVID. I feel like she was so full force ready to just like spring us into this universe, thinking about the stupid love video and all like the merch and the rollout. It had, I think it was 4 or 5 of those different like tribal, those like emblems. So there was definitely like a whole universe of Chromatica that we really didn't get to dive into as much as we would have had COVID not happened. And it really did throw off this whole comeback to pop that we were all waiting so long for. I mean, just looking at her discography, if you want to talk like traditional pop albums, Art Pop was 2013, and then Chromatica didn't come out until 2020. So we really had a gap there where we had 7 years of Gaga was still present. She was doing all these projects. I mean, she was nonstop, Coachella, Cheek to Cheek. She did Joanne. She went on tour. She did the Super Bowl. She did Coachella. Like she really was working, but we were missing that like that poppy side of her. And when the pandemic hit and like Coachella, Chromatica kind of just got like a little, disheveled and pushed or whatever it was. Like it really was so upsetting for all of us and for her, I'm sure. And it still did end up debuting atop of the US charts, becoming her 6th consecutive number album in the country, which obviously we were ready for it. We were all at home. We had nothing to do. So listening to the album at home was great. But like, I remember listening to the album on album release night and hearing like Rain on Me and being like, I should be at the club. Like Gaga wants me to be dancing to this album and I'm not. And we all felt that. It really was. The album itself is phenomenal. It's truly like such a masterpiece of an album and I love it, but it really was a letdown in terms of like we didn't get to celebrate that album when it was released the way that we should have. Then 2021 comes around and she releases Love for Sale, her second collab with Tony Bennett. This ends up breaking her #1 streak. She went number 8 with debut, which is still great, but she was on that consecutive #1 streak for 6 albums, I believe. Yeah, 6 albums it was. So that broke the streak, but we kind of knew like, okay, she's doing this vibe with Tony. She went back to Vegas to do Enigma and she was doing the piano and jazz show. So like it made sense for her to like get some new material, if you will, to perform at these shows. And we knew Chromatica was out and she was going to still eventually, hopefully give us the tour. The tour actually, she announced the tour and then it got pushed back. I totally forgot until literally just now. The tour was fully announced, tickets went on sale, and then it got postponed until 2022. So we had 2 years before that album even got toured. The Chromatica Ball was truly one of the best shows I've ever been to. It was a blast and completely worth the wait. But like I said, like by that point, the album was 2 years old. She had released Love for Sale with Tony. She went back to Vegas for Enigma. Like it really was like it was a weird rollout for that album because it really couldn't be traditional. And we had to wait so long for the tour, which God, I hope we don't have to wait 2 years for a Mayhem tour. Like, can we please just make sure there's no pandemics between now and like 2026 so we could see a Gaga album rollout be complete and like hopefully her hip doesn't break again or she doesn't have anything go on and like she could actually do a full rollout again because she's had obviously great success, but there has been a lot of what's the word? Trials and tribulations along the way. And then, of course, 2024, she releases Harley Quinn with Joker Filet Ado, which we all know how that went. I'm a theater gay. I loved it. It wasn't anything, it wasn't a Gaga album, but it was fun. It was fun. It was fun. There was the Judy Garland covers. There was all, it was very, very different again for Gaga, but she loves to remind us that she is not a one-trick pony. And now here we are, Mayhem 2025. So I, for one, am so excited. And it was just, when this album got announced, I was like looking back at Gaga's career and like what she's done. And there really is such a diverse amount of music and projects that she's been a part of. I didn't even mention House of Gucci, American Horror Story. Like there's been so many things that she's done to really diversify herself and who she is. Of course, like she has had great success and I think she'll always be successful as an artist because again, she really does have that imprint on so many of us pop music fans and just people who can appreciate her music for what it is and who she is as an artist. But there's definitely been some interesting things in her control and not in her control that have kind of affected her album rollouts along the way. So message of the episode, Lady Gaga is back on March 7th. We get a new single this weekend. I am over the moon excited for this album. I truly cannot wait. And yeah, we will chat about it. I think Mayhem is going to be my first album review episode of the year. I'm I'm so excited for the album. I think it's really going to be something that is I like stick with for a while. It's going to be on repeat. If it's anything like Chromatica or any of her last albums, it's going to be something that I really dive into full force, and I can't wait to recap it with you guys. So I definitely plan to do a full album review episode like I did with Cowboy Carter and everything for that album. So stay tuned for that, and I cannot wait. And moving on to our second to last segment of the show, we have our TV recap. I'm going to hold off on recapping the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City finale until we have all 3 parts, because I just feel like for the sake of time, I've been yapping for a while, and like there's going to be things that happen in each episode that are major, but like I really want to talk about like the big moments. So I'm not going to talk about the Salt Lake City finale just yet because we still have 2 parts coming out. However, I am going to just quickly say that RHONY, though I have not been recapping it this entire season because it was boring, that finale was fucking crazy. Brynn was wild for that lie. For Brynn to say that she was so certain that Uba knew about her sexual assault, only for it to not be true, and then her get completely exposed like that on the cameras. Like, it was wild, and I don't think we'll be seeing her return next season. I just don't think there's an apple for her after you lie about something like that. Like, that's a serious offense and a serious thing to lie about. To lie about being sexually assaulted, or to lie about somebody knowing about your sexual assault. She didn't lie about the assault. I don't want to, diminish her story, but to say that somebody knew about it and then you're actually like, maybe they didn't know, actually, I don't know. On or off camera, that is really crazy. That was nuts. The media company that produces it did post the other day that they are looking to cast some new girls. So we're definitely going to see a shakeup in the cast next season. I don't know who. I definitely could see Brynn bowing out. I think after that, there's really no coming back from it. And I just don't think it'll be received well if she comes back next season and they like allow that behavior on the show. It really does kind of paint a negative picture rather for Bravo. But we will see. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if Uba's gonna leave. I feel like she had a really high intense season, and I think she's ready to like settle down with her boyfriend and have a baby and do all of that. So maybe she won't return. I could also see Jenna kind of bowing out. I feel like she did it. She did her 2 things, her 2 seasons, and I don't know if this is really the lifestyle that she wants. I love Jenna. I would love to continue to see her story and like her life with her fiance or wife, I forget if they're married or not, her kids, and just like continuing this like fashion, obviously, empire that she has kind of started for herself and like career that she's built. So who knows what's next for the Real Housewives of New York. I do think like Erin, Sai, Jessel are for sure going to be back. I think they are very cut out for the show, and I think they made some good TV this season. So, for not that any of it was like groundbreaking, but for the good TV, like, they did what they had to do. But we will see. I don't know. Maybe hopefully next season is better if there is one. I mean, they're casting, so there must be a new season. But we will cross that bridge when we get there. I'm excited for this reunion. I think it's going to be fucking nuts. So I'll recap Salt Lake City and RHONY reunion, probably the same episode. So give me like 3-ish weeks for that. And I will give you guys my full recap on the reunions. I'll do it together. So it's like a double feature Bravo moment for everybody. But moving on to our next show that we're going to be recapping is The Traitors. First things first, what the hell was Danielle thinking during that challenge? Not picking herself put the biggest target on her back, and I don't know what she was thinking, like whether she thought that was going to help her or not. I just don't see a world in which that would help somebody. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they essentially had to like solve a riddle. If they got it right, they got to pick a portrait off the wall, and there is 2 spots for people to be safe. And you don't want to get murdered, so you're going to put yourself up there. Everybody else put themselves up on the board except for Danielle, and it just screamed traitor to me. I was like, girl, come on, like, be so serious. I just thought that was a dumb way to play the game. And I think it definitely put a giant target on her back. I also just think like all of the traitors are slowly, one by one, turning on each other, and it's making me not want the traitors to win. The show is called The Traitors. You want the traitors to win, usually, in like a perfect world. But this season, I am just like, the faithfuls are kind of like, they're kind of the interesting ones. Like Boston Rob completely turned on Bob the drag queen and blindsided Bob. And now we're seeing Danielle throwing Carolyn under the bus. Dylan telling Carolyn that Danielle's throwing her under the bus. Danielle and Carolyn both trying to turn on Boston Rob, but they're like not doing it together. Like it just is like the Traitors need to get their shit together because they just are all over the place. And it's making me like not want them to win. Like I want the Faithfuls to vote them all out so the Faithfuls can win this season because it's just like it's not the vibe, you know? It's not the vibe. However, I do think that it's time for a recruitment soon for a traitor. I think within the next 2 episodes, if not this week, next week, we need somebody new in that group because the three of them, they're just not working well together. And like, I think a traitor's going to go home this week or next week, and then somebody's going to get recruited, or whether somebody gets recruited and then a traitor goes home, like there's going to be a shakeup in the Traitors the next 2 weeks because something's got to give. Like something's got to change because right now it is just not giving. The Traitors aren't giving what the Traitors need to give. The Traitors aren't traitoring, if you will. But yeah, that is the Traitors. Oh, also Chriselle and Gabby turning on Nikki like that was heartbreaking. Like that hurt me. So I can't even imagine how I felt for Nikki. The way that the two of them were like, "Oh, we have your back, we have your back." Gabby literally was like, "I'm your ride or die," and then turned on her in the round table and voted for her. I was like, what the fuck? And Danielle did that to Bob 2 weeks ago, last week, whenever that was. Like, these people, they're playing a game, so like I get it, but like you are really pushing the trust limits on these girls. Like they're trying it. But I am really liking this season. I am. I think it's a really good cast. I think there's a lot of smart players in the game who can make really good traitors. And I think they can take this game and turn it around if they play their cards right. So I'm excited to see like where they go from here and like what the next step is for the Traitors, not as the show, but as like the group within the show. Moving on to our final show that we're going to recap is RuPaul's Drag Race. It is another day in the workroom, and we are getting a new challenge this week, which is something exciting. Drag Race has their main stage, Snatch Game, the Rusical. They always do like they do like acting challenges. Like they always have, their mainstay challenges. So when we get a new challenge or something, it's just fun. It really spices up the show, and I loved this challenge. I love this whole episode. I think this was the best episode of the season so far. The challenge was the musical commercials. Bitch, I'm a drag queen. Very much giving Now That's What I'm Calling drag, essentially. So the girls are all assigned a Drag Race moment, which I love the fact that Drag Race can just reference Drag Race now. They don't have to pull from like pop culture anymore. On the pit stop, Monet was saying that. Monet was like, I don't need to pull from pop culture anymore in Drag Race because we can just reference Drag Race. And it really is like they're 17 seasons in now, not including all the international and all-star seasons. Like they have made such an empire for themselves that like they are the reference. Like I'm your favorite reference, baby. That was about Drag Race. That was not about Charlie. That was a Drag Race moment. That being said, all of the girls are given a famous Drag Race moment. Lots of Alyssa Edwards, which we love to see. We're just going to go through quick. I'm not going to go through each and every performance like in depth, but I'm going to give you just my thoughts. So going through volume 1, first up we had Lana and Lydia. I thought they were very, very funny. I thought they worked really well together. Lana scared me a bit with this country vibe because she was not feeling it at first, but the two of them really pulled it together. And Crystal being the tumbleweed in the back was so hysterical. I thought they did a really good job for this. Next up we had Joella, and my only note there is mess. I did not like it at all. Next up we had Jules and Ari Eddie. What a dream team. The two of them together, like they've been two of my faves. I really, really like them. Their personalities work really well together, and it was a lot of fun. Jules did definitely overshine Ari Eddie, but like that's not Jules' fault. Ari Eddie could have stepped it up a little bit. But that being said, I really thought they did a good job. It was really fun. And yeah, they did a great job working together. I really like the two of them. Hormona Lisa, next up, she sold that. I was honestly a little nervous during the rehearsals because like the girls were saying, like she really was kind of like not taking direction from anybody and just like doing whatever. But in the end, like she knew what she needed to do and she came through. Like she really ended up selling this, and I thought she did a really good job in this challenge. And then finally for volume 1, we had Crystal Envy, and I mean, she's just good at everything. Like she is just so polished, so talented, can take on any challenge, any design. Like she is just such a talented human being, and she was phenomenal in this. It was so good. I absolutely loved it. Moving into volume 2, first up we had Susie Toot. This bitch ate. That was phenomenal. I was obsessed. It was so good. And she's really like making a name for herself on this show. She's really showing a lot of different talents and different things that she can do. And I think she's really one to watch this season. I'm really impressed with Susie this season so far. The next group we had was Sam and Acacia, which was really fun. I liked it a lot. It wasn't necessarily one that like stood out to me. Like it wasn't like a, like a star of the show, but the two of them did a really good job. And I did really like what they ended up doing with the number. Next up, Anya Nerve. Okay. I need to take back every single thing I have said about Anya Nerve in episode 1 and episode 2, where I was really like, I don't know how I feel about her. I am a fan, and I'm going to go as far as saying I'm a stan. She has stepped it up so incredibly well these last 2 episodes, and this last episode made me appreciate every single thing that she does. She devoured that performance. It was hysterical. I literally was laughing the entire time. She could sell water to a fish. Like she can sell anything. Like thinking back to her Monopulence thing last week, like she was selling that garment as if it was her job. And this is just another example. Like she can sell a performance, sell a garment. She's so charismatic and just can really capture you with everything she does. And I am officially an Anya Nerve stan. She is officially in like my top 4 for the season. I think she's really one to watch, and she has really stepped her game up to a whole new level. Speaking of somebody who I completely stan, Lexi Love. I thought this was really, really fun. I thought she really sold it. I thought she looked so funny. Like she had such like a disheveled look, but she was still giving kind of like not glamour, but like she still looked like Lexi, but she looked a little, she was a little like shaken up, but I thought she looked great. I thought she sold it. I thought she was so funny. She has a lot of talents in her bag, a lot of tricks up her sleeve, if you will. And again, she is one to watch for me. I've been saying this is a Lexi Love Stan podcast, and that's going to continue to the end because I really think she is one to watch. And then Corey King was a absolute mess. That's all I'm going to say. It was a mess. I hated it. Her and Joella, spoiler alert, they ended up being the bottom queens, and it was so well deserved. Getting ahead of myself though, let's talk about the runway. So it was Quilted for Your Pleasure as the theme. First up, we had Lydia Butthole Collins, and it was really fun. I didn't necessarily understand the look. Like I didn't get it. It was a little like, what am I looking at? But it's drag. Sometimes you don't need to get it. It's just somebody expressing themselves in their art form. Next up, we had Lana Jarre, who I love her. I do. I have a soft spot for her, and I thought her look was really, really fun. It could have been a little fine-tuned, I will say. There was like a lot going on, but it wasn't too much. It just was like, it could have been a little cleaner, I felt like, or a little more just like maybe put together is the word. I thought the wig was really cool. I really loved the colors. Like the concept was great, and she looked great. It wasn't a bad look by all means, but I definitely think there could have been a little more of like a not cohesive, that's the wrong word. A little more of just like a polish to it. That's the word. But again, I have a soft spot for her. I love a New York City queen. Something that was not safe and I was actually terrified of, and I think if I ever see anything like this again in my life, I will be scarred. Joella. What was she thinking? I thought she was known for her looks, and if these are the looks that she's known for, I guess she never said the looks she was known for were good. Like this look she was a quilt, a literal quilt, and if she was a funny, campy queen, she could have made it work. Like Utica could have made that work. Evie Oddly could have made that work. There are so many queens who could have made that work and done it in a better way, but it's not Joella's thing, and it was just so poorly executed. Also, RuPaul was like off center on the back, and like, why did she think to spray paint RuPaul on the back of a quilt? Like, it was just like, it was truly all over the place. And like, if you're gonna come down the runway looking like a glory hole, at least look like a glory hole that like I want to use. That was just like wasn't for me. Next up, we had Ariete, which I really liked her look. I thought the leather with like that print was really cool, but I don't know if it screamed quilted to me. Like I didn't see a quilt. I wanted more padding. I wanted more of like a actual quilt, but I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a cool look. I really liked it. And the pattern with the leather, they complemented each other well. I like that a lot. Next up, we had Jules Sparkles, who was someone I've been loving this season so far. I really liked the hair. The hair was really, really cool with those two like Princess Leia buns with the spikes coming out. The corset moving off of her body over and over again and showing her nipples, that was throwing me off. She did have like the little pasties on, but I was just like, I don't know. It just didn't work for me. Sometimes you can do that, like where you are doing that like boy body with it and it works. For this, for some reason, it didn't work. Maybe because it was a little more like regal with that like neck piece, which I thought the neck piece was really cool. And like the construction of the garment was cool. But I wish she would have had like a breast pad on and had the dress come up more. I don't, it just, it again, kind of like Lana. It was a really cool look. I really liked it, but it could have just been polished a little bit better. Next up we had Hormona Lisa, and I like this. It was fun, it was fine, it was safe. The pastels are fun, a little something different I feel like than other people did, but it was good. It was fine. Next up was Crystal Envy, and again, she is just so unbelievably talented. This is drag. Like, this is what I want to see on season 17 on the runway of RuPaul's Drag Race. It was sickening. She has been giving it to us every single week, and she's just not getting off these girls' necks. And then she reveals that from that jacket, and her legs are quilted. Like, it was just, the details are there, the talent is there. She is so, truly so remarkably talented. I'm loving her this season. I think this was an absolute 10 out of 10 for her this week. It was phenomenal. Next up, we had Susie Toot. Her makeup this week was gorgeous. The dress was fine, but it wasn't anything crazy to me. But her makeup this week, I loved. I thought she looked stunning. Loved it. Next up, Sam Star, really well done. It told a story and it was a little campy, but it was still glamorous, which isn't an easy thing to do, but it was fun, it was kitschy, again, it was campy, but she still looked like Sam. She still had that that runway pageant star to her, and it was just so well done. I really, really liked this look. I thought it was really, really well done. Next up, we had Acacia Forgot, and I fear she's coming to her end for me. She just is not doing anything special for me on the runways. And though like in the challenge this week, I thought she did well. Again, it wasn't one that stood out to me. So if you have like an unrememberable performance and then your runway isn't really doing anything, I just am like, at what point is it like, all right, like your name is Acacia Forgot, and I keep forgetting about you. Like I know that's your name, but like that's not the point of Drag Race. You're supposed to be memorable, and you're not. You're not doing that. Memorable? Is that a word? Memorable. It's late. I've had a long day. Anyway, moving on to the last three queens on the runway. Anya Nerve. Again, this is an Anya Nerve stan account. She looked jaw-dropping. She looked truly stunning. The hair, the head wrap, the way the dress fit her body. God, she was truly a star this week, and I'm obsessed with her. I am obsessed. She has made a fan out of me. Next up, Lexi Love. You guys know I'm obsessed with her. Just really cool. It was very high fashion. She is just everything. And she just screams America's Next Drag Superstar. She has an it factor that a lot of the girls don't have. I am loving her this season. And then Corey King, who, again, I said I hated her in the challenge. I didn't hate her runway, but I didn't love it. It was fine. It was safe. It was okay for me. But the challenge, the way she, like, if you're going to be that bad in the challenge, you need to really bring it on the runway. And I fear she didn't, unfortunately. So just wasn't for me. We come to find out that Anya Nerve wins this week. I could not agree more. She really brought it to a whole new level for her this week. Like, she is now one to watch, not just as the fans, but everybody in that workroom should be like, okay, Anya is stiff competition, because she was phenomenal, and I'm thrilled that she has a win under her belt. We come to find out, like I said, the lip sync is Joella versus Corey, which totally deserved. The two of them just did not bring it this week. And I've been saying it's time for Joella to go home, so you can imagine how thrilled I was the fact that she finally got eliminated. The lip sync song is Buttons by the Pussycat Dolls, which is such a good lip sync song. Like, everybody knows it. It's a fun song. It's who doesn't love that song, It's just like when that song comes on, I am giving full performance on the dance floor. And Joella didn't know all the words. It was obvious she wasn't prepared. It was just like, she revealed during the lip sync, but not on the runway. And even when she revealed, it wasn't anything crazy. Like, it wasn't a good reveal. It was just a lot. Like, I don't know. Overall, the lip sync, it was fine. Was I gagged by the lip sync? No, but Corey did eat her up. Like, it wasn't a lip sync to go home about. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. I thought Corey did a really good job, but like, when you're going against Joella dressed as a duvet cover, I fear it's like, yeah, it's a shoo-in. And then she did not pull the right lever, thank God, and she goes home. We're good. She is out. I have not liked her this whole season. Since she walked in, she's just like, wasn't feeling the fantasy. The fantasy was just not there, not for me, and now we don't have to worry about it. So I am thrilled. And I feel like we're getting to a point, we're only 4 episodes in, but the girls are really starting to like diversify and show like who's the stiff competition. So I put together my potential top 4. I definitely think Lexi Love and Anya Nerve, though they are like, I'm a little biased because I just love the two of them. I think they are really bringing stiff competition to this show and showing a lot of diversity in their drag. So I think the two of them can definitely go all the way. I also see a spot for Susie Toot. She has really been giving a little bit of everything so far, only in these few episodes, and I think she's one to watch. I think she has a lot under her belt, and she comes into the room looking like a one-trick Betty Boop pony, but she really has a lot more to show, and I think she's really gonna continue doing well in this competition. And then I was torn between Crystal Envy and Sam Starr for this last spot. I think my thing is, like, when you look at Lexi, Anya, and Susie, they all have a different drag style, which makes sense for a top 4. You need a diverse top 4. Where Sam and Crystal do kind of teeter on that same pageanty queen kind of vibe, you know? And I love it. They are truly phenomenal. Like, they are bringing a different level of drag to this stage, but I don't know if there's a spot for both of them in the top 4. So I do think it comes down to the two of them. That I would love these 5 as a top 5, and then Sam or Crystal being the one like left out for the top 4. But it could be a top 3, could be like, who knows? Like, we really don't know how it's going to go. You know, Drag Race loves to throw a curveball in there, but that's who I am rooting for right now. Those are my main contenders. And yeah, that is Drag Race this week. This season is definitely picking up, and like the girls who are there to play are playing, and a lot of the girls I think are starting to be like, oh fuck, like the challenge is on. Like, people are going home. They are really critiquing us on the runway to a different level. Like, we need to step our pussy up, and I'm very excited to see where the rest of the season goes. And that brings us to our final segment of the show. It is time for our yes and our mess of the week. My yes being something I am loving, and my mess being something I am not loving. And my yes this week is a couple, because love is in the air, and Macaulay Culkin and Brenda Song are on the cover of Cosmopolitan's Love issue, and the two of them are just a couple that I feel like, not that I forget about them, but they don't make headlines a lot, and I love that. I love that the two of them kind of stay in their lane, they do their thing, they come and do this like publicity stuff here and there, like Brenda's promoting obviously her the last showgirl, and like they're just doing these little moments together. It is just, I love the two of them together. I think they are such like a, not a sleeper couple in a boring way, but a sleeper couple in a way that they just like do their own thing. They mind their business, they stay in their lane, and then we remember that they're together, and we're just like, oh my god, I love them. They're such like a pair that you wouldn't put together, but those are sometimes the best couples. I thought it was so funny when they were doing that interview, and Brenda was like, what's my tagline from Sweet Life? And he fully went full London Tipton mode and was like, yay me. Like, he has watched that show back and forth. He's watched Sweet Life on Deck. He's watched That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. Like, you can just tell that he loves her so much. They love each other so much, but like, you could tell that he just like worships the ground that she walks on, and that's what I want to see. I want to see more of that with men. You know, worship your woman a little bit more, because the women are the ones who are going to run the world one day, and you know, you gotta prepare and treat them the way that they should be treated. And yeah, they're like a couple that like I don't think about that often, but when I do think about them, I'm like, I love them together. And being on the cover of Cosmo together and seeing all this press they're doing, it just reignited that fire for me. And I love them. And my mess this week is the audacity that is Gracie Abrams fans. Now, I'm going to be fully transparent. I am not necessarily a Gracie Abrams fan. I don't dislike her. I just don't listen to her. I might get shit for this, but I tend to find her a little boring. I feel like I'm going to regret saying that, but she's just not for me, and that's fine. Not everything needs to be for me, and I understand why people like her. I think she does have an appeal. I think she's very talented, but she's just not my cup of tea. But this week, I am rooting for her, because if you did not see, she announced that Dora Jar was going to be her opener on her upcoming tour, and her fans had the fucking audacity to create not a GoFundMe, a change.org petition. What is it called? Like a petition, whatever, to get the opener changed on the tour. And like, fully people were signing this being like, she's not going to bring the energy that we want for the Gracie Abrams tour. And the tour starts very soon, so we're not going to have time to know her music and deliver the performances that we want in the crowd. Girl, do you know how fucking crazy you all sound signing that petition and putting those words into a petition description? The fact that you have the audacity to sit there and be like, we're not going to be able to learn this girl's music in 2 or 3 weeks, so you should change the opener. Who the fuck do you think you are? And the fact that like Dora Jar and Gracie have both seen this and like had to make comments about it, like that sucks. Like I can't imagine being Dora Jar or Gracie and seeing this and having to like have that conversation of like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, and now Dora has to like go on stage every night and perform in front of people who probably signed that petition. Like that is like that's a shitty thing to do. I saw Dora Jar open for Billie Eilish. Yes, for Billie back in like 2021. And she was fun. She was kooky. She was definitely like in her own little world, but I wasn't making a petition for her to not open for Billie Eilish. Like, you just don't do that. And I think stan culture has gotten to a very weird place in the last few years. I think with after the pandemic and TikTok and like people just getting a little too comfortable with stan culture. And this is coming from somebody, if you guys don't know me, like a few years ago, like I was fully engulfed in stan culture. I was. And my frontal lobe has developed and I now I'm like, oh, that is not an appropriate way to act with somebody you do not know. The parasocial relationships are stronger than ever, and I just encourage everybody to like take a step back from that. I mean, I host a pop culture podcast. I'm the first one to say like I love being a fan of people. I love supporting artists. I love supporting their music, their movies, their project. I talk about it every week for an hour plus. Like I love the idea of like supporting these artists and their art, but the level of like parasocial and just like crazy stan culture that people have gotten to over the last few years, it is really crazy. Like it's really not to like use her name, but it is definitely door jarring. Like it's fucking nuts the audacity that people have, and that was just not cool. Not cool at all. You go to the tour. If you don't know her music, you cheer between songs, you listen to her sing, and you wait for Gracie. Like, who do you guys think you are? Creating a petition to try to get a new opener. As if you guys have any idea how hard it is to book an opener and to like get somebody on your tour schedule. Like, this isn't just as simple as being like, okay, I choose you, now come with me. Like, there are contracts, there are legal obligations, there is obviously money involved, there is a whole schedule to be made. Like, it's not just like as simple as being like, oh, people don't want you on my tour, I'm gonna go call somebody else. Get fucking real. Take your GoFundMe, whatever it was, and shove it up your ass. I can't. People really do have the nerve. It is bizarre. It's fucking crazy. And I think that's a perfect way to end it. That being said, thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Too Pop to Handle. Once again, to my video people, I am so sorry. I will figure it out by next week. I think I'm just going to go back to filming on my phone and like it'll just be, it is what it is. I guess if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But that being said, thank you for understanding and bearing with me and just doing an audio only this week. We will be back with video next week for sure. If you liked what you heard, make sure you give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Send this episode to a friend to say it every single week. If everybody listening sent it to one person, I will double in listeners. Simple math. Let's get this show poppin'. It is too pop to handle. Let's get it even more. Let's make this show too pop to handle. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's skyrocket this shit to the moon this year. If you would like to follow us on social, we are at too pop to handle across all platforms. If you would like to follow me on social media, my personal accounts are at Andrew Nucatola. And with that, I will catch you guys next week. Bye.